the obliteration of whole peoples. The orange and green men are particularly subject to such extinction. On average worlds, during the latter part of the prince's rule, national life begins to replace tribal organization, or rather to be superimposed upon the existing tribal groupings. But the great social achievement of the prince's epoch is the emergence of family life. Heretofore, human relationships have been chiefly tribal. Now the home begins to materialize. This is the dispensation of the realization of sex equality. On some planets the male may rule the female, on others the reverse prevails. During this age the normal worlds establish full equality of the sexes, this being preliminary to the fuller realization of the ideals of home life. This is the dawn of the golden age of the home. The idea of tribal rule gradually gives way to the dual concept of national life and family life. During this age, agriculture makes its appearance. The growth of the family idea is incompatible with the roving and unsettled life of the hunter. Gradually, the practices of settled habitations and the cultivation of the soil become established. The domestication of animals and the development of home arts proceed apace. Upon reaching the apex of biologic evolution, a high level of civilization has been attained, but there is little development of a mechanical order. Invention is the characteristic of the succeeding age. The races are purified and brought up to a high state of physical perfection and intellectual strength before the end of this era. The early development of a normal world is greatly helped by the plan of promoting the increase of the higher types of mortals with proportionate curtailment of the lower. And it is the failure of your early peoples to thus discriminate between these types that accounts for the presence of so many defective and degenerate individuals among the present-day Urantia races. One of the great achievements of the age of the prince is this restriction of the multiplication of mentally defective and socially unfit individuals. Long before the times of the arrival of the second sons, the Adams, most worlds seriously address themselves to the tasks of race purification, something which the Urantia peoples have not even yet seriously undertaken. This problem of race improvement is not such an extensive undertaking when it is attacked at this early date in human evolution. The preceding period of tribal struggles and rugged competition in race survival has weeded out most of the abnormal and defective strains. An idiot does not have much chance of survival in a primitive and warring tribal social organization. It is the false sentiment of your partially perfected civilizations that fosters, protects, and perpetuates the hopelessly defective strains of evolutionary human stocks. It is neither tenderness nor altruism to bestow futile sympathy upon degenerated human beings, unsalvable, abnormal, and inferior mortals. There exist on even the most normal of the evolutionary worlds sufficient differences between individuals and between numerous social groups to provide for the full exercise of all those noble traits of altruistic sentiment and unselfish mortal ministry without perpetuating the socially unfit and the morally degenerate strains of evolving humanity. There is abundant opportunity for the exercise of tolerance and the function of altruism in behalf of those unfortunate and needy individuals who have not irretrievably lost their moral heritage and forever destroyed their spiritual birthright. 3. Post-Adamic man. When the original impetus of evolutionary life has run its biologic course, when man has reached the apex of animal development, there arrives the second order of sonship, and the second dispensation of grace and ministry is inaugurated. This is true on all evolutionary worlds. When the highest possible level of evolutionary life has been attained, when primitive man has ascended as far as possible in the biologic scale, a material son and daughter always appear on the planet, having been dispatched by the system's sovereign. Thought adjusters are increasingly bestowed upon the post-Adamic men, and in constantly augmented numbers these mortals attain capacity for subsequent adjuster fusion. While functioning as descending sons, the Adams do not possess adjusters, but their planetary offspring, direct and mixed, become legitimate candidates for the reception in due time of the mystery monitors. By the termination of the post-Adamic age, the planet is in possession of its full quota of celestial ministers. Only the fusion adjusters are not yet universally bestowed. It is the prime purpose of the Adamic regime to influence evolving man to complete the transit from the hunter and herder stage of civilization to that of the agriculturist and horticulturist, to be later supplemented by the appearance of the urban and industrial adjuncts to civilization. 10,000 years of the dispensation of the biologic uplifters is sufficient to effect a marvelous transformation. 25,000 years of such an administration of the conjoint wisdom of the planetary prince and the material sons usually ripens the sphere for the advent of a magisterial son. This age usually witnesses the completion of the elimination of the unfit and the still further purification of the racial strains. On normal worlds, the defective bestial tendencies are very nearly eliminated from the reproducing stocks of the realm. The Adamic progeny never amalgamate with the inferior strains of the evolutionary races. Neither is it the divine plan for the planetary Adam or Eve to mate personally with the evolutionary peoples. This race improvement project is the task of their progeny. But the offspring of the material son and daughter are mobilized for generations before the racial amalgamation ministry is inaugurated. The result of the gift of the Adamic life plasm to the mortal races is an immediate upstepping of intellectual capacity and an acceleration of spiritual progress. There is usually some physical improvement also. On an average world, the post-Adamic dispensation is an age of great invention, energy control, and mechanical development. This is the era of the appearance of multiform manufacture and the control of natural forces. It is the golden age of exploration and the final subduing of the planet. Much of the material progress of a world occurs during this time of the inauguration of the development of the physical sciences, just such an epoch as Urantia is now experiencing. Your world is a full dispensation and more behind the average planetary schedule. By the end of the Adamic dispensation on a normal planet, the races are practically blended, so that it can be truly proclaimed that God has made of one blood all the nations, and that his Son has made of one color all peoples. The color of such an amalgamated race is somewhat of an olive shade of the violet hue, the racial white of the spheres. Primitive man is for the most part carnivorous. The material sons and daughters do not eat meat, but their offspring within a few generations usually gravitate to the omnivorous level, although whole groups of their descendants sometimes remain non-flesh eaters. This double origin of the post-Adamic races explains how such blended human stocks exhibit anatomic vestiges belonging to both the herbivorous and carnivorous animal groups. Within 10,000 years of racial amalgamation, the resultant stocks show varying degrees of anatomic blend, some strains carrying more of the marks of the non-flesh-eating ancestry, others exhibiting more of the distinguishing traits and physical characteristics of their carnivorous evolutionary progenitors. The majority of these world races soon become omnivorous, subsisting upon a wide range of viands from both the animal and vegetable kingdoms. The post-Adamic epoch is the dispensation of internationalism. With the near completion of the task of race blending, nationalism wanes, and the brotherhood of man really begins to materialize. Representative government begins to take the place of the monarchical or paternal form of rulership. The educational system becomes worldwide, and gradually the languages of the races give way to the tongue of the violet people. Universal peace and cooperation are seldom attained until the races are fairly well blended and until they speak a common language. During the closing centuries of the post-Adamic age, there develops new interest in art, music, and literature, and this worldwide awakening is the signal for the appearance of a magisterial son. The crowning development of this era is the universal interest in intellectual realities, true philosophy. Religion becomes less nationalistic, becomes more and more a planetary affair. New revelations of truth characterize these ages, and the most highs of the constellations begin to rule in the affairs of men. Truth is revealed up to the administration of the constellations.